Hi folks, thank you very much for clicking on this video. I really appreciate that. Well, it's been weather-wise an absolute disaster here this autumn. It's been for the last month or so. It's been cloudy pretty well every night, so I've not been able to get out with my telescope at all. But today it's quite nice and sunny outside. There's some fairly high clouds, but we've got a little bit of a window between about 5 p.m. and 8:30 where the clouds are supposed to clear. So I'm going to dive out and yeah, have a little bit of outside time, and I hope you're going to join me. My name's John and I make videos on camping, astronomy and walking. If you like what you see in this video, then please check my channel out, as there may be others that interest you there. But in the meantime, let's crack on with today's video. So my target tonight's going to be the Perseus Double Cluster, which sits in between the constellation of Cassiopeia and the constellation of Perseus. It's really easy to find actually, and it with a pair of binoculars it looks really good. With a small telescope it looks fantastic. It is actually possible to see it with the naked eye in theory. Sometimes I think I can see it from my back garden here as a kind of faint sort of cloudy smudge, if you like, but then I never know whether that's my imagination playing tricks on me. I took a photograph of the entire region a couple of years ago, and you can see in that photograph where the double cluster sits in relation to the constellation of Cassiopeia. Within the same photo there was I also managed to get the Andromeda galaxy, and also a couple of nebula, the Heart and Soul nebula. This was just taken, I think it was a 24mm lens on a camera. Needed to be fitted to a star tracker, in my case the Star Adventurer, to get this, so I could take long enough exposures to pick up the galaxy and the nebula. But nonetheless, you know, this does show you that you don't need to have a telescope in order to take photographs of deep sky objects. About a year ago I took a photo of the double cluster in Perseus using a very budget telescope, an Orion short tube 80, with a view to just proving again that you don't need to have sort of fantastic telescopes in order to take photos of deep sky objects. I was quite pleased with the picture that I got. I think it's possible, hopefully, to improve on that significantly by using sort of better kit, but I'm not going to go for anything like a large telescope really. With the image that I'm going to take today, you could take with a camera lens, because I'm going to be using this tiny little telescope that I got that's a cross really between a camera lens and a telescope. It's the Askar FMA135 FMA scope. So you could use a 135mm lens and duplicate what I'm going to do today. Yeah, so hopefully everything's going to go to plan. Now the double cluster itself is supposed to represent the jewels in the sword of Perseus. It's basically two open star clusters that sit about 7,000 light years away, I think. They're actually very similar age, and they're, comparatively speaking, very close together, about 300 light years apart. So in space terms, this is two collections of stars that are very close together. They contain some very white or bluey white supergiant stars that I'm hoping to get the sort of bluey whiteness colour out, and also scattered about are some red stars that I've never really been able to get the red colour out of these stars. You'll have seen that from the little image that I put up using the cheap Orion short tube 80 scope. So yeah, I'm hoping to get some nice colourful stars and beautifully crisp. So yeah, just got to wait for another hour or so and I can start setting up. The scope that I'm going to use, as I said, is the Askar FMA135 scope. I'm going to tag that onto my Star Adventurer mount, just because it's easy and quick to set up, rather than using my bigger EQM35 mount that you can see behind me. The camera is an unmodified camera. You don't really need to get a modified camera in order to do star clusters. I'm going to be using a light pollution filter, the Optilong L Pro filter, which sits on the end of the Askar FMA scope. That's not the ideal place to put a filter. It'd be better if I had a clip-in filter in the DSLR itself, but yeah, this filter where it's going is better than having no filter at all. And it's a filter that I quite like. I've got one installed in my William Optics Red Cat 51 scope, and what I've found is it does a good enough job for getting rid of the light pollution round near where I live, but more importantly it retains the natural colours of the stars, which is what I'm after in this instance. So I'm hoping for decent results out of that. I've got my William Optics wedge, which means polar alignment is dead straightforward. So I'm going to be aiming for exposures of between 1.5 and 2 minutes, I would think. I can get longer than that, but the sky will just become too bright with those longer exposures. So yeah, after a long month, I'm hoping for a bit of success.
Hey, you're good at making me lose my mind, but I always come around, don't I? And I know sometimes I'm bringing you down, but I always make you smile, don't I? We're like the waves on a big blue stormy sea, but still you're the one who brings out the best in me. We're a little messed up, baby, kinda up and down, and we keep falling till we hit the ground, but then we get back up again. Yeah, we're a little messed up.
In a minute I'm going to call it a day. I think I've just looked at the satellite picture and the clouds are going to be coming in about 10 minutes or so. So I'm just going to run this for a few more minutes and then call it quits and go inside. Well, I'm glad I made the most of yesterday's little clear spell. We had like a couple of hours, 2.5 hours of clear. Today it's back to the normal autumnal cloud. And in the end, I got an hour and a half's worth of exposures. I did about half an hour, the first half an hour of 90-second exposures. And then when the sky got a bit darker, I took 2-minute exposures from there on in. So yeah, I was quite pleased with that. I processed the images yesterday when I came in, essentially. And in an ideal world, I was hoping to get the Perseus Double Cluster and the Heart and Soul Nebula within the same shot. And if you remember the image that I put up a bit earlier on, these targets would just about fit in the frame of view of the Askar scope and a crop sensor camera. The problem comes that with the Askar scope, it's not possible to rotate the camera round when it's fitted to the Star Adventurer in order to frame the subject up ideally how you would like it. Whereas with the Red Cat behind me there, you can rotate the camera through 360 degrees to get the exact framing that you want. So I was looking at my exposures, and obviously I'd got the Perseus Double Cluster in there because that was my primary objective. And I could just see the star cluster at the centre of the Heart Nebula in the bottom left corner. I knew I couldn't see the Heart Nebula itself, it was too faint to show up on one shot, but I could certainly see where it was in the image. and I guessed I'd got about a third to a half of the heart cluster, and that was it, and certainly none of the Soul Nebula. So I did a quick little process on that just to kind of see what I'd got, if you like, and you can see here that the red heart nebula did actually come out in the bottom left, but it was only a small portion of it. So I kind of went back to my original and main plan, which was to focus on the Perseus Double Cluster itself, and I actually did two processes on the double cluster. With one of them, my intention really was to make the sky quite dark so that the stars kind of looked like jewels in the sky, almost like diamonds scattered on a black velvet cloth. And so that was like one process that I did. But whilst I was fiddling around with the image, I noticed that there was some red hydrogen alpha gas in the area of the double cluster, which I was a bit surprised to get with a unmodified camera, but I guess that's the 2-minute exposure times helping do that. So I did another process where I didn't kind of darken the sky too much, and I tried to bring out the red, already brown hydrogen alpha gas, and I just couldn't decide which picture I liked best. So in the end, I kept both of them, and I put both of them at the end of the video. And yeah, maybe you could let me know in the comments which one you prefer the most. But yeah, anyway, without further ado, I shall put those up, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, cheerio.